The secret to reselling that everyone knows but nobody does. Everyone knows what they need to do in order to have a bigger Amazon store or a bigger eBay store. Like, it really just comes down to sourcing more profitable items and listing more profitable items. But the ironic thing is that nobody actually does it. And it comes down to three main categories of why people don't do this. One, they don't have the sourcing expertise. Two, they don't have the prepping expertise. And three, they don't know how to use capital right. So if you guys don't know who I am, I'm 𝗪cie_𝗰𝗶𝗹, and I run a six-figure Amazon store. Currently, I'm doing around 45K in sales per month. And the reason I make these videos is because a lot of people aren't making that much money in their Amazon stores, and I don't want you guys to be one of them. So let's talk about this. So there are three main reasons why people don't make money in their Amazon stores. They don't source enough, they don't prep well enough, or they don't use their capital correctly. So all three of these come down to fear. Whether it's in sourcing, they don't invest in a course in order to learn how to source better. They don't invest in consulting to help them source better. They don't put in the time and effort to research how to source better. The information is out there and you can talk to people and you can learn from people. But at the end of the day, if you don't feel like you can actually learn it and you have gaps in your belief about what you can do with sourcing, then why are you going to put in the time to try and learn? You're just not going to. So you're going to have to take gradual steps and build that belief that you actually can find profitable items more and more so and grow in this area. The second one that I hear a lot is about prep. There's some people who, believe it or not, refuse to not use Seller Central to list their stuff. That's like ground level prepping help. You don't even have to hire an employee. You literally just buy a listing software and suddenly you're not spending 3 minutes per item listing. They don't buy inventory labs, which is going to help you list faster. They insist on doing all the prep themselves. They'll say stuff like, oh, it doesn't really take that long for me to prep. They'll say stuff like, oh, well, if I hire employees or use a prep center, the things aren't going to be as quality controlled. And like, some of these things are true, but like, it's ironic because when you try to hold on to money or you're basically holding on to money. So if you're trying to hold on to money saying that everything needs to be perfect when you send it in, you're going to end up making less money because you're not going to sell as many items. You're just not going to have the time to. Or you're just going to run yourself ragged at 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week, prepping all your items. And at that point, why not just delegate it so that your 60 hours can be worth 90 hours instead? Like, regardless of how you cut it, if you can delegate your prep, if you can get some softwares to help you list faster, it's really going to help a lot more rather than like holding on to everything. It's just ironic how when you hold on to something really hard, oftentimes you end up losing the thing that you're holding on to. That's not exactly selling advice, but it's interesting how that works. I think I tried. My experience with this is at the beginning of last year, so 2021, I was selling only books. And as I was scaling that, I really wanted to delegate ASAP. So I did, and I had a single mom listing for me, and I would just drop off the books at her house, and she would list them, and she used my inventory lab account, and she'd set up shipments and everything. And that was a really good setup. Books, it's pretty simple to list once you've actually done it. But then once I started doing retail arbitrage and online arbitrage, the prep for that is a lot more complex. So for a while, I didn't know what I was doing myself. So I was learning that. So you have to like gain the skills in order to do it. And then once you're there, you have to be able to teach someone else how to do it. So at first, I tried hiring a local high school kid to do a similar thing with books. And I tried a couple months after I started retail arbitrage, so like I tried. And things just kept coming up, and he was not consistent about listing things, and he got like injured in his football practice and stuff, and it ended up not being a situation where it could be sustainable for me. So we ended up finishing that, and then I did my own prep for a while. And then I eventually realized that you could use a prep center, and prep centers have been a game changer for me. So if you're not using a prep center, that can be a really big way to free up some time, and you'll probably end up getting better at sourcing as well if you free up your prep time. And the third and final way that Amazon sellers know they need to get better but don't get better is with their capital. So oftentimes it comes down to people don't want to spend money on inventory, and so they end up spending their time instead to find the inventory. They'll go around Walmart to Walmart because there's really good ROI deals there, and therefore they don't have to spend as much money. But they ended up spending all day to find their however much profit. When if they got better at the sourcing and potentially at the prep, and more so were willing to spend on smaller ROIs instead of these big 100% ROIs from retail arbitrage, they would be able to spend more money, and they would end up selling more inventory and end up profiting more. Also, this comes down to not understanding the basics when it comes to capital, not understanding how to use credit cards, not understanding about loans, not understanding that a regular business does take time in order to even become profitable, but yet they think that they can pull profits from it on month 2, month 3, when they could be benefiting much more by reinvesting. Because if you don't have money invested in inventory, how are you supposed to make money? You're a retail store at the end of the day. And I think a reason why people aren't educated on this, and when I say people, this is like out of the three, the sourcing, prep, and capital, I would say I'm probably weakest at capital. And so for me and for other people, I think it comes down to varying degrees of not believing that the education is going to help them, or not believing that they're going to make money with the move that they're making. I was doing RA and I was spending like $1,000 a week, and coming from books, that was nerve-wracking. But thinking about it now, like this week I've spent $12,000, and that's on the highest end for me, and I think eventually that'll probably be lower end for me as well. So coming from retail arbitrage and then going to online arbitrage, eventually I was spending $2,000, $3,000 a week, and that was my profit goal. And eventually I was getting that goal like early on in the week, like it would be Tuesday, and I've spent the $3,000 on profitable inventory. And fear held me back for a long time because I wasn't used to spending $3,000. Like it's a thing that takes a while to get used to. But like all of these, the sourcing, the prep, the capital, it's all about fear, because I was scared that if I spend more than $3,000, things are going to get out of control, something's going to happen, my account's going to get suspended, like goodness knows like what I was scared of. But that ended up losing me money, because if I had been scaling hard in September, I would have been doing like $40,000 months in like October, November, and December instead of January and February. And potentially I would have done 60, 70K months in January and February instead of 40K months. And like that's a big difference in profit. So it's ironic how when I thought I was holding on to money, I was making the smarter financial move. I really wasn't. So the goal isn't to just jump in head first and just like take out like the biggest loan that you can when you haven't even sold an item, or like you don't even know how the system works. Like you do need to keep like growing yourself and progressing yourself. Keep taking those steps in order to make the next best move that you can, and soon enough you'll be able to source the way that you want to, and you'll have lots of items to buy, and you won't know how you're going to buy those items, and you're not going to know how to prep them either. So you're going to have to deal with those problems as they come up and delegate to inventory labs, to an employee, to a prep center, to potentially buying items that are more expensive and therefore you have to prep less of them. And then there's capital. So with capital at the very beginning, even spending $1,000 in a month is going to be really scary, because maybe you started off thrifting and you were at the bins and you'd spend like $70 on like a crazy day. So you're going to have to like start to work your way up to spending more on profitable inventory. That way you're not spending all day outsourcing, and you can start to scale your business in a way that takes less of your time, and so you can get some of your time back. Like for me right now, because I'm spending so much money and because I know how to find profitable inventory, I'm spending usually around 25 hours a week on my Amazon store, and then I spend other time on social media. You really don't have to be sourcing all day to find stuff. I source a couple hours a day max, and that can be streamlined even more. So whatever your main tripping point is, whether it's sourcing, prep, or capital, recognize your fear, be aware of your fear, and see if there's one better step that you can take into making a more efficient store. This is Checkmate Flips, and if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Make sure to be stretching yourselves, and take care.